So Loki season 2 episode 4 ended with a bang. Yeah, I know. It's kind of easy to it's pretty easy to say that. Where the TVA appeared to have exploded. And now the questions have come up about Loki episodes 5 and 6. So I want to give you my theory, what I think is going to happen in these upcoming Loki episodes starting next week, because obviously the story's not over yet. There were scenes that were in the original trailer that were clearly not anywhere in the first 4 episodes. I also did go back and check out episodes 2 and 3 again, and I do like episode 2 a bit more than I did the first time. Just it seems to fit better when you actually look at the entire scheme of where they're going. And episode 3 I actually liked even more than I did the first time, significantly. I liked episode 3. I really did. But low key, season 2 episode 3 is even better than I had remembered, and they all kind of go together to really build to this big climactic moment. So besides just the reveal that Miss Minutes as an AI program, it has like emotional romantic feelings for He Who Remains, but also is kind of a psycho. I mean, you saw her face when, you know, the cube was crushing people. Like at that point, I was thinking, okay, is she gonna be the real secret villain? Is there going to be another He Who Remains? Because I saw like how Victor Timely may have been being set up to be He Who Remains. There's also been a theory out there that the Kang that we saw in Ant-Man and in the third Ant-Man movie, that he's going to eventually be He Who Remains, even though they do behave a little bit differently than they did, but it could be something that, time changes everything, because remember that Kang exists at the end of time. So, what is my theory going into episode 5? First of all, I do think that with the TVA exploding, it feels like the workers of the TVA, who we found out were actually prisoners that were put there by He Who Remains, variants given jobs. I think a lot of them are going to go back to their respective universes that were not pruned, or they're going to be placed somewhere else in the multiverse. Now, I could be wrong on this one completely. I'm not super solid on it. But there's no question that there has to be some form of the TVA that's still going to be around, because there's still more multiversal stuff going on. There's still more chaos. We have the incursions that were discussed in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, as well as in Loki the series, and there has to be some form of TVAs going forward, especially since we heard leaks, and they may not be true, but we did hear leaks about the TVA being in the Deadpool film, the third Deadpool movie. Now, I want to say that, and before I go any further, I have not looked for leaks on Loki. So if what I'm saying either correlates something that already got leaked, or if what I say is the complete opposite, I would have nothing to do with it. I haven't looked. I've been trying to like not look anything up, because I do enjoy watching it. Low key, season 1 was my favorite Disney Plus show, and looks like Low key season 2 is going to end up continuing that when it comes to the MCU Disney Plus shows. So, especially with episode 4. So, I do think that Loki, because he's able to traverse through time, you have to understand that originally, the way that it was explained in the first season, the TVA does not exist in time. The TVA exists sort of outside of time, kind of like how the end of time, where the citadel of He Who Remains was at. So that's been changed though, because they basically make it seem like the area, the world, the universe, whatever, that the TVA exists outside of any major timeline or any major universe. It's sort of its own thing. I think that's changed. I think with the fact that we saw Loki prune himself in episode 4, which matched up with what happened in episode 1, see, it all kind of connected there. I don't know why he pruned himself, but it did connect. I didn't understand it. Maybe because he doesn't want to be, I don't know, it could cause confusion. I have no idea. But the point is that because those events happened, it feels like the TVA now exists in time. It feels like when He Who Remains was taken out, that is where this situation has changed the rules of the TVA, and now they have their own maybe not linear timeline, but they have their own timeline. Now, of course, that begs the question, are there branching timelines off of the TVA timeline? It feels like that could be the case because I feel like Loki being able to time hop is going to be another factor going into episodes 5 and 6. I think with episode 5, we're going to find Loki probably not sure what the heck's going on, probably confused somewhere. And I think that he's going to use that time hop ability to try to find people who he recognizes, whether it be OB, whether it be, Sylvie, whether it be, Mobius, whomever, whoever he wants to find. And I think we'll see it. I think we're going to see that. I think episode 5 will be kind of like a mini version of Endgame, where instead of looking for the Infinity Stones throughout different points of time, he's going to look through people who he worked with, and eventually he'll end up back at the TVA, and there's going to be some kind of change happening. I don't know if Victor Timely is going to stay dead. I enjoyed Major's performance as Victor Timely, but I don't know if he's really going to stay dead. Because if they're going to go back and change the way events went, if they're going to go back and change the ultimate explosion of the Loom and the destruction of the TVA, then it feels like that's going to have to change too, right? I mean, I'm not crazy for thinking that, right? And we may end up getting some like Back to the Future type of stuff here where Loki has to run around the TVA and avoid that timeline's, this Loki season 2 timelines versions of himself, of Sophie. I don't think he'll prune himself because that version of himself has to exist there in order to time hop. So it's still a big mystery. I think that Victor Timely could still come back and maybe even eventually become He Who Remains down the road. But we know that Loki season 2 is not going to end the story because we still have Kang Dynasty, we still have Secret Wars, we've still got the Deadpool 3 rumors, which I'll discuss in a different video, and I have discussed them. We know the TVA is going to be involved in that if the leaks are true. So it is a thing where this is not going to be the end, but I think that the job of Loki season 2, I know some have said it's to save the MCU because of the just absolute bad times they've had all year, man. Phase 4, Phase 5, not very well received. I don't think that's Kang the Conqueror's fault. I think there's a number of different factors behind that. I don't think it's the character's fault. I think, though, that Loki has to course correct and get everybody hyped up for at least Avengers. It might not get anybody in the theater to go see the Marvels. I don't know if anything can get folks out there to go see the Marvels. I think that movie's going to lose money. It might not get folks to go see Captain America 4, which I'll check it out. I mean, I enjoy those movies. They've all been pretty good, right? And obviously Deadpool 3 would be the next phase of the multiverse because Deadpool and Wolverine are not from the MCU version of the 616 Earth. So they're going to end up there at some point, but they're not there. So that's going to be the next important movie. But I think Deadpool kind of sells itself. I think Deadpool, because it existed prior to the MCU getting the kind of backlash it's gotten lately, because it entertained people for the last 2 movies, I think that Deadpool is going to be spared from a lot of people's wrath against the MCU. You know what I'm saying? I do think that it'll be okay. So the story, I think, will have Loki trying to find his allies to eventually return to the TVA and try to fix the Loom. But at the same time, I don't think they'll be able to really fix it. I think ultimately the multiverse is going to go haywire. I think that the TVA will somehow exist. I think the TVA will still be around. They won't be destroyed, but they'll have a new purpose. And there's all kinds of rumors about that. Perhaps Loki and Sylvie become the leaders of the TVA. Perhaps they take over from Ravonna. And let's not forget, Ravonna, that's a whole other story there. So Renslayer was pruned. That means she's going to go to the end of time, which is going to take her right back to the Citadel. So what if she has her own story? Because there's that as well. They kind of have 2 different stories going on. And what's going to happen when the TVA comes back? Is that going to reboot Miss Minutes? Or is she going to get reprogrammed? There's a lot of things that they have to kind of really fix if they're going to go back and undo what episode 4 did. They're going to have to really fix a lot of things. But I'm excited because the mystery and the marvel, no pun intended, of the MCU is back with the Loki show. Loki has once again been a shining beacon of hope for the MCU, and I think if people walk away from the show not with a conclusion that's necessarily going to resolve everything, but with one that gets us excited for the upcoming movies, not including the Marvels, I think that just with that, they'll kind of be sort of fixing the problems and they'll be back to kind of where they need to be. And at least folks are going to get hyped again for the upcoming Avengers movies and anything involving Kang. I do want to see more with Jonathan Majors as Kang, not just the ones that we've already seen, but other variants. We've seen Ramatut, we've seen Immortus, we've seen Victor Timely. There's other versions too. I want to see more of those too explored, not just random henchmen for Kang Dynasty. Anyways, y'all, I'm out. Take care, and I will see you real soon.